I'm Tommy Gibbs, and if you don't know me, you should. I was a new car dealer for over 20 years, and then 20 years after that, I spent on the national speaker circuit teaching new car dealers and their managers how to make more money selling used cars and teaching them leadership skills. And in recent years, I've gotten involved in the real estate business, which I'm very passionate about. So you could say I'm an expert in dealing with the two things that you're going to spend the most money for in your life: automobiles and houses. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 10 tips or 10 ideas about how to navigate going out and purchasing a used car. So here you go. Here's 10 tips for you. Enjoy. Okay, my first tip is you should consider buying a 1, 2, or 3-year-old used car. That's going to be where the greatest value is for you. That's not to say you shouldn't buy something older, because you may need something older because of budget or whatever. But your best value, especially if you're considering buying a new car, would be a 1, 2, or 3-year-old used car. So keep that in mind moving forward. Think, if I can find a 1, 2, or 3-year-old used car that fits what I'm looking to do, it should be a really good option for you. Okay, number 2, and this is really, really important. This may be the most important tip I'm going to give you. Open your mind up to other makes and models. Now, if you've got your head locked in on you're going to buy a BMW SUV, and that's what you're going to buy, I can't help you with that part. But what I'm suggesting to you is, let's say that you love a Toyota Highlander. It's a great vehicle. Nobody can question that. Toyota is a wonderful brand, right? But if you're a little bit flexible on that, there are a lot of other makes and models out there that are similar to a Highlander, where you can get a lot more car for less money, and it's going to serve you just as well. There's terrific parity out there these days. All these cars are made really, really well nowadays, yeah? So think about, if you're buying a Toyota Highlander, maybe you want to consider a Kia product or a Hyundai product or a Nissan product. Open your mind up to other makes and models, and that's how you'll get your best deal. Okay, here goes number 3. This is big too. They're all big. Number 3, set some mileage parameters. Set some of those, yeah? Get it in your head what you're not willing to accept. In other words, if you're going to buy a 3-year-old used car, you might say, you know what? I'm not going to buy anything with less than 50,000 miles on it. The lower the miles that you can get on the car, the better the value is going to be for you. Let me give you an example. This past year, I bought a 2019 Genesis G90. And that's a pretty expensive car. Even at 2019 was expensive, right? Well, what was the most important thing to me was to find one with low miles. So I found one. This was in 2022. It was 19. I found one with 6,500 miles on it. Bingo. I was willing to pay a little more money for that car because it had less miles on it. There's going to be less issues for me to deal with. It's got a whole lot of factory warranty left on it. So be very conscious of the miles on the car. Now, keep this in mind too. There was a time in the automobile world that if a vehicle had 50,000 miles on it, it was slam worn out. That's not true anymore. There's vehicles out there that are well maintained. They last longer. Some of them have 80, 100,000 miles on them. So don't be afraid to go there, but try to match that up with the year model of the car. You know, the average miles is roughly 10 to 15,000 miles is what people put on cars. So kind of use that as your guide. You don't want to get out there with something that's got really high miles on it. I wouldn't want to buy a 2-year-old used car that's got 70,000 miles on it. I would stay clear of that if I were you. So my tip here is, set some mileage parameters. So tip number 4 is buy your used car from a new car dealer. You're going to be so much better off doing that. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy from a used car dealer. If you know someone, their personal friend, your brother-in-law, whatever, that's fine. I got that. But by and large, you're better off to buy from a new car dealer. Why do I say that? New car dealers are extremely concerned about their reputation. They're concerned, easy for me to say, extremely concerned about customer satisfaction. So if you have an issue and you take it back there, the odds are that they're going to try to do whatever they can to make you happy. They do a terrific job. They have a process. They do a terrific job of reconditioning their used cars. So they try not to let anything slip through the cracks. It does happen from time to time. Now, on that subject, you would be by far better off to buy from a new car dealer that is not a publicly traded company. Publicly traded companies are companies like Sonic and AutoNation. The people you're dealing with in those dealerships have limited authority. A lot of the information comes from the top down, from corporate headquarters down, and they can only do so much for you. If you're dealing with a local dealer, a local dealership that's owned by a local person, they have a whole lot more leeway and authority about taking care of you. They may be someone at your country club. They may be someone that goes to your church. These people are very interested in what goes on in the community, much more so than the auto nations of the world. So my tip is buy your used car from a new car dealer, and if at all possible, buy from a dealership that is not a publicly traded company. Number 5, know where that used car came from. What do I mean by that? During the course of your interaction with the dealership personnel, you want to try to find out where that car came from. Was that car a trade-in? Did they buy it at an auction? Did they buy it from someone on the street, a private citizen? Where did that car come from? What you want to avoid is buying a car that came from an auction. So if the dealer says, we bought this car at the auction, and they'll tell you, that's probably not the car for you. The only reason cars end up at the auctions that dealers buy is because someone else doesn't want them. Dealers buy them from the auctions oftentimes to fill their inventory needs. They don't get enough cars on trade-ins, so they go to the auction and buy cars. They know that that's the least favorite place for them to get a car. They also know that they overpay at the auction. So if they have a car that came from the auction, two things are pretty sure here. We don't know much about it because we don't know its true history. It's not one of our customers. And B, the dealership probably overpaid. So guess what? You're probably going to have to overpay. Even though they use some other pricing tools, they still have in their head what they paid for that car. So you want to stay away from cars that a dealer bought at the auction. So ask that question. Hey, where did this car come from? And your best choice is to buy a car that's been traded in. There's this old saying, you've heard it probably. People say, well, why would I want to buy a used car from a dealer because it's someone else's problems? No, it's not really true. People take pretty good care of their cars today. So buying that car that was a trade-in is your best value. The second best one is a car that the dealership bought from a customer. Dealerships today are really reaching out and trying to buy cars from the public. That's a good buy, but stay away from that car that's bought at auction. Now, let me add one more element here. Oftentimes dealers buy former rental cars, and by and large, those cars have been taken well care of. Don't be afraid to buy a car that the dealer has bought from a rental car company. Now, they might have bought that at the auction. So if they say we bought it at the auction, but it was formerly a Hertz car or whatever, don't be afraid of those cars. Those cars aren't dogged out like you think they are. Look, I travel a lot. I use rental cars all the time. I don't dog them out. People don't dog those cars out. So don't be too worried about that. And make sure that you don't buy that car that's just an auction purchase car. It's okay, again, if it was an auction purchase and it came from Hertz or Avis or Enterprise or one of those people. Number 6, financing. So if you can, you'd be smart to go ahead and line up your own financing and kind of know what your limits are and how much money you can borrow, what the payments are going to approximately be. Now, it's not a bad thing to finance through the dealer. Oftentimes the dealer can get you approved and get you maybe at a better rate than you can get on your own because they're working with multiple lenders and they're packaging things up. So don't close your mind to financing with the dealer. Now, that said, don't take this strategy here. You hear people do this. They'll say, I'm going to go to the deal and I'll tell them this is going to be a cash deal. What's your rock bottom price? Okay. Not a really good idea. If anything, you might want to imply that you're going to finance with a dealership, even if you've already got your financing lined up, because the dealer does make money on the financing of the vehicle through one of their lenders when they do that for you. They get reimbursed. They get paid to do that. Okay, let's keep it that simple. So you'll be smart to say, well, I don't know. Give me a really good deal and maybe I'll finance with you. Now, once you get into the business office or finance office, whatever the dealership may call it, then you can explore your options. With that in mind, I don't think that in most cases you need to buy an extended warranty, because in most cases, there's some factory warranty left on it. Those extended warranties are really expensive. My dealer friends are going to be mad at me for saying that to you, okay? But I'm trying to give you good advice. Maybe you want to buy, maybe you do want to buy an extended warranty, but buy the least expensive, something that just covers the powertrain. That's what you're the most worried about. Now, the older the car, the more complicated this gets. But by and large, I'd suggest you stay away from the extended warranties. You don't need to be buying a whole lot of the things that they sell in the financial insurance office. You make those decisions. But my real point here is consider financing through the dealer, because oftentimes they can serve you well. They can give you a good rate, but go ahead and go to your bank first, so you kind of know how much money you can spend, because your lender or your credit union, your bank or whatever, they can kind of guide you on what your situation is going to be based on your credit worthiness and based on the type of car you're going to buy. So make sure that even before you get out there and buy a car, think about buying a car, you've explored your finance options, okay? Number 7 is pricing. Dealers by and large have gone to what's called one price, meaning they don't negotiate. This was inspired in many ways by the pandemic, because the law of supply and demand came into play. There was a lot of demand and not a whole lot of supply. And so more and more dealers have moved towards that business model. And actually, it's better for the consumer and it's better for the dealer as well. So odds are the dealer isn't going to be willing to negotiate very much. Now, keep this in mind. Dealers have a software tool that allows them to see how vehicles are priced out on the internet. And so they're not going to overprice their vehicle. It's going to be a competitive price no matter what, because they know that you are out shopping on the internet. So there won't be a lot of room for negotiation. The dealer is going to price their cars competitively. So you need to go into the deal understanding how the system sort of works now. If you bought a car, your last car was one you bought 15 years ago, and you went in and you negotiated really hard and you got the best deal, that kind of negotiation doesn't really take place anymore. Well, I shouldn't say that. It probably does take place somewhere, but more and more dealers are moving to a different business model that makes it an easier environment to work in. You don't feel as jerked around. So it's really better for everyone involved. So clearly understand that there's not going to be a lot of room for negotiation in the pricing, because dealers are competitive. They know how their vehicles are being priced on the internet by the other dealers. And so the odds of you getting a fair deal are much better than they ever were. Number 8 is, what if you have a trade? How should you handle that? Yeah. Now, it would be really smart of you to go ahead and do some research before you ever go to the dealership if you intend to trade your car. Depending on your situation, it may be better for you to sell your car outright. Now, there's a lot of ways to go about this. I'm going to give you a couple of things to think about. Number 1, the first thing I advise all my friends to do this. The first thing I would suggest you do is go to the CarMax website, and you can go into the CarMax website and put some information in there, and they'll give you a value for your car about what they would pay for it. You can pretty well lock in whatever they tell you, whatever CarMax tells you, they will give you that for your car. They're really good about that. Keep in mind that you don't have to trade your car in at the dealership that you're doing business with. Maybe that's confusing the way I said that. In which you can do business, you can buy a car from dealership A, but sell your car to dealership B. So the smart thing to do is to go ahead and preempt all of that even before you go out to the dealership and go on the CarMax website. Now, I would also suggest, let's say that you have a Toyota. I would suggest that you go to a Toyota dealer's website and do the same thing. Almost every dealer out there today has a button on their website. You can push that button, put some information in. Now, one of the things you should do before you get to that point is go ahead and have your car detailed. Get it cleaned up, spend a little bit of money or do it yourself and get the car dolled up looking really good, and take some pictures. A lot of times when you go to these websites to give them information about your car, it'll ask you if you want to upload some photos of it. Uploading photos is a really good idea, because again, it's going to put you in a better position to know what the real value of a car is. So go to CarMax, go to a couple of websites that are your brand, even before you go to the dealership to negotiate. So understanding that your car is going to be a big part of this. Look, in the bottom analysis here, or the bottom line, is how much money difference are you going to end up paying for the car that you're buying? So whatever, if you maximize the value for your trade, you're way ahead of the game. Now, it could be an advantage to you tax-wise. Certainly it is in the state of Florida where I am. There's some advantage to you tax-wise from making sure that you do trade your car in to the dealer where you're buying a car. There's tax reasons to do that. All the more reason you need to be well armed with information before you go to the dealership to buy that used car, or new car for that matter. This applies whether you're buying new or used, to understand what your vehicle is worth and what the potential may be for you to get for that vehicle. Again, you don't have to trade it at the dealership that you're buying it. Now, if you have a payoff, sometimes that's easier, but it's not imperative, because if you were to go to CarMax or the Toyota store that I mentioned just a second ago, they'll handle all that and they'll write you a check for the equity that you have in your car. Again, it may be easier to do business, to trade your car or you're buying your new car. And there's some tax advantages to that. You have to kind of figure that out. But go ahead and do a little bit of research before you ever go out to look at automobiles and start to make contact with a dealer. Okay, number 9, ask for a manager. Now, the odds are if you're shopping online, you're going to make contact with a salesperson or an internet salesperson that may be communicating with you online. If you're doing some of the chatting back and forth, you may have even talked to them on the phone, and that's fine. That's a person you're going to probably deal with when you get to the dealership. But even so, I would suggest that you ask for a manager when you get there. Now, this may depend on whether you've done business with the dealership before and you happen to know somebody there. But what I'm suggesting to you is, even before you get into the driving of the car, the paperwork, or whatever you're going to do in this transaction, when you hit the door, say, hey, may I see a sales manager? Introduce yourself. And you might take this technique here and say, look, I wasn't all that happy with my last car purchase that I bought down the street at XYZ. You don't need to tell them where you bought it. I wasn't all that happy, and I want some assurance from you that you're going to introduce me to a salesperson that really knows what they're doing. Quite frankly, if I was not in the business and didn't know anything about the business, I would walk in and say, hey, Mr. Ms. Manager, I want to deal with your number one salesman. Why would I want to do that? Because if they're the number one salesman, they know what they're doing, and they're going to make sure that I'm handled properly. Not that anyone else wouldn't do that, but just kind of understand where I'm coming from here. I want you to get introduced to the manager in the very beginning, so you have a contact. If something isn't going well, you can pick the phone up. Ask that manager when you get introduced to them, ask them for their card and say, hey, is this your cell number? Can I reach you here if I should need you for any reason? Make that contact with a manager, and it's going to probably improve, and not probably, it will improve this whole transaction for you. And that's what's most important. Okay, number 10, reach out to me. Look, if I can help you, I'm here to guide you and make your car buying experience less stressful and enjoyable. So that's really what I'm here about. I'm involved in 2 of the largest purchases you will ever make. I sell houses and I help you buy a car. I've been in this business for a long time, so anything I can share with you on either of those subjects. Hey, there's another video right here that you may want to take a look at if you're ever interested in buying a property in Florida, but put that aside for a moment. I'm here to try to help you, and so I did this video and gave you these bullet points to try to make the experience a better experience for you. And number 10 is, if I can ever be of help, reach out. I don't charge for this. I'm just here to help you try to have a better experience. I'm Tommy Gibbs, and thanks for taking time to watch this video.